mundane.
Good morning, everyone. About 2 years ago, my wife and I had one of the most traumatic experiences of our marriage. So it was one of those times where we needed to fly back to Singapore, a 20-hour flight, and it was the very first time that we needed to bring with us a little baby. And if bringing babies on board and flying long distances like that for 20 hours is not a good idea. So it was the very first time that we as parents needed to bring a baby on board and fly back to Singapore. So what happened is they gave us the first row of seats with lots of leg room, and then they put a little bassinet about this size in front of us so we can put the baby on the bassinet to sleep, right? And then when we sat down and the baby needed to sit on our laps till the seatbelt lights were off and then we're up in the air. And I noticed that on the other side of the aisle was a very young couple too with a baby, about the same age as my son Jude, maybe a little bit older. And so we had a conversation, very nice, and then after that it was time to take off. So here we are, right? The plane takes off, lights dim down, seatbelt lights come off, and it's time to tell the baby, okay, Jude, you have to go on the bassinet now because you have to sleep. And everybody looking around them, they're all trying to sleep. It's your turn to sleep. Okay, mommy and daddy are right here, so you gotta try your best to sleep. I know it's difficult, but you gotta try. Put him down, hands off. Jude, mom and daddy are here. Don't worry. You're okay. We're okay. And here's the toy. Here's your favorite toy. Calm down. It's okay. People are trying to sleep, dude. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. That was his favorite song. Calm down. And he just cried and cried for almost all 20 hours of it. So it was a really hard experience. It was really traumatic. And what made it worse was the couple and the baby on the other side. For almost all 20 hours, the baby was... I was like, what is wrong with my baby? And at this time, by this time, people were trying to sleep. The guys next to us were staring at us like, can you keep the little guy down? And then I realized that in a small place like this, when you're on a long flight and you're thinking about many things and you're thinking about trying to get somebody whom you have no control over to sleep, and then somebody else is sleeping so soundly, then you realize that actually there are many ways of sleeping and there are many kinds of sleep. At least that's what I realized in that point of time. So either you can have a baby who's crying and don't want to sleep because they're fearful that mom and dad will be gone when they open their eyes, or they're just stimulated by all the lights, the new environment, by people walking back and forth, all the noises that they're hearing, the humming of the airplane, or whether you have a baby who is sleeping soundly. And by the way, after the flight, I asked the parents, what is your secret? Benadryl. So they drugged the baby from start to the end. And we didn't do that ever after. We're not going to do that to our baby. But whether you are somebody who's just on drugs and just sleeping throughout the plane, or you're watching the TV and you're like, I'm going to catch all 20 hours of movies, man. I'm going to make it. Or you're just trying to fall asleep. There are many different kinds of people on the plane trying to fall asleep, many different kinds of sleep. And while there are many kinds of sleep, actually a recent research in Stanford actually says that there are more than 100 types of sleep disorders itself, and much more ways of sleeping. And despite all these many kinds of sleep, the psalmist in Psalm chapter 4 tells us two particular kinds of sleep. So let's go into the Word of God today, and let's read Psalm chapter 4. Answer me when I cry out, my righteous God. Set me free from my troubles. Have mercy on me. Listen to my prayer. How long, you people, will my reputation be insulted? How long will you continue to love what is worthless and go after lies? Know this, the Lord takes personal care of the faithful. The Lord will hear me when I cry out to him. So, be afraid and don't sin. Think hard about it in your bed and weep over it. Bring righteous offerings and trust the Lord. Many people say that we can't find goodness anywhere. The light of your face has left us, Lord. But you have filled my heart with more joy than when the wheat and wine are everywhere. I will lie down and fall asleep in peace, because you alone, Lord, let me live in safety. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
And the psalmist starts in verse 1 by this: Answer me when I cry out to you, righteous God. Set me free from my troubles. In the Hebrew, the verb is actually in the perfect tense, which means to say it has already been done. And literally what it means is, you have set me free. You have set me free when I was constrained in a small place. You have given me room, and you have done that for me, God. So now have mercy on me, and now listen to my prayer. So the psalmist is recalling the goodness of God, what God has done in his life. And this is the basis for him crying out to the Lord. And then he goes on to talk about the first kind of sleep, from verses 2 to 4. He turns to the people now. How long, you people, will my reputation be insulted? Reputation, the Hebrew word for reputation is actually kabod, which is more frequently translated as honor or glory. Psalm 4 is actually one of the psalms in a collection of psalms that is used for morning and evening prayers, which is Psalm 3 to 5, or some people take Psalm 3 to 6. So Psalm 3 begins by saying, or somewhere in Psalm 3 it says that, I will lie down and sleep, and I will wake up, for you, O Lord, you will help me. And then it goes on to a cycle where it starts by Psalm 4 saying, I will pray to you before I sleep. Answer me before I sleep in the evening. And Psalm 5 goes on to say, in the morning when I wake up, I will do this. I will pray and I'll cry out to you. So when it says kabod in here, my reputation, there is a way to understand what kabod actually refers to in this particular instance when we look at Psalm 3. Because Psalm 3 actually says this. It says, you, O Lord, you are my kabod. You are my glory. You are my honor. You are my reputation. So there's a way to read this verse as saying, how long, you people, will my God, will the Lord be insulted? How long will you continue to love what is vain, what is worthless, what doesn't give you anything, what is futile? Why do you go after lies? Have you forgotten what God is like? Have you forgotten the goodness and what it means to trust in the good God, the Almighty, the Lord? And then he says this, know this, the Lord himself takes personal care of those who trust in him. And that's why he will hear me when I cry out. He started off the psalm by saying, I cry out to you, God, you have done this for me. I trust in you, now have mercy on me. You will hear me. And he says, I am one of those who trust, and the Lord will hear me. He takes care of those who trust in him. And then he talks about the first kind of sleep. So, be afraid and don't sin. Think hard about it in your bed and weep over it. The first kind of sleep is fearful, tearful, and thoughtful. It is full of fears. It is full of tears. There's crying, there's weeping. And it's full of thinking, thoughtfulness, worry, anxieties. This is the first kind of sleep that the psalmist is talking about. In fact, it can barely even be considered sleep, because he says they lie down in bed, but he never says sleep. He never uses the word sleep to describe them. And this is the sleep of those who fail to trust in the Lord, who forget what it means to trust in a good God, to forget the good God and the God who loves them so much. In my second year of marriage with my wife Vanessa, we started trying for a baby. And we tried month after month for a year, 2 years, and then 3 years. And if you have tried for a baby, then you might understand what it feels like when you calculate that time of the month and you say, okay, we're going to try for a baby at the time of the month, and towards the end of the woman's menstruation cycle, her menstruation comes. And that is almost like saying, too bad, so sad, try harder next month. Try again. And what happens for my wife is she gets really emotional about this. I'm telling you this story because I have permission from my wife, and she allows me to say this, and I'll just go into a quick summary of what happens. So she would cry herself to sleep the very first day when she realizes that we're not going to have a baby that month. 1 month goes by, 2 months, 3 months. It gets harder and harder. Every night she will be crying herself to sleep. Her pillows will be soaked with tears. And she will be so fearful. What if we never have a baby? What if one of us, you or I, we are infertile and we will never have a child? I want to be a mom. What if I never, ever have a chance to be a mom? And what do you do as a husband? What do you do when you're lying beside the love of your life, who's crying herself to sleep? She literally cannot sleep till she's so tired and so worn out, and then she finally falls asleep, only to start the next cry cycle the next night. What do you do? It's really hard for me and for her. Baby, it's okay, I know you're really sad, and I feel really sad too. But God, how do you say but God in those days? How do you say but God in those nights? How do you console a broken heart who is fearful, tearful, and full of thoughts at night? Maybe some of us can relate to that today. Maybe it's not trying for a baby. Maybe it's your finances. How is this going to work out? I don't know. How am I going to have enough? I don't know. How am I going to finish my studies? How is my body ever going to get well? How is my mom, my dad, my friends ever going to get well? How is my child ever going to be raised properly? How is he or she ever going to get right with God? How is my depression or my mental illness and my sleeplessness ever going to go away? How? And maybe you and I can relate to that experience in a different way, where we have those nights where we are simply tearful, fearful, and thoughtful. But the psalmist says this. The psalmist says in verse 5, well, bring righteous offerings and trust the Lord. In Psalm chapter 5, he says it this way, well, lay it all down before the Lord. Lay it all down. Bring your righteous offering. Bring everything you are, everything that's inside of you. Lay it all down before the Lord and trust Him. The psalmist has a remedy for this kind of sleep, at least one kind of remedy for the sleep, and that is to trust in the goodness of the Almighty God. In verse 6 to 7, he goes on to say this, that those who trust in the goodness of God, well, He will fill your heart with a joy that exceeds the joy of success and the material abundance. Look, these people have wheat and they have wine. Their harvest is here by the works of their hands throughout the year. They're now getting their harvest. And there is a joy that comes with it. There is a joy that comes with seeing the fruits of your labor come to pass during the day. But at night, even so, you are sleepless. They are sleepless. There is a joy, yes, but there is also a sleeplessness in that. But God has given me joy in my heart that exceeds the joy of success and material abundance. Why? Because my joy is in the Lord Himself. Because He is my joy. My joy is in the Almighty, the God who loves me, who cares for me, who hears my cry, who has mercy on me, who has given me room when I am in a constrained space. This is my God. And that's why I have joy in the night. And then he goes on, the last verse, to talk about the last kind of sleep, the second kind of sleep. Where the first sleep is merely just lying down, the second sleep brings about peaceful sleep. Literally in the Hebrew it says, in shalom, I will both lie down and fall asleep. What the psalmist seems to be telling us is that even in the humdrum, the mundane, the routine, the little things such as sleep, God is watching. God is concerned. I can lie down and I can sleep peacefully because you alone, oh Lord, you let me live in safety. When your sleep escapes you, your sleeplessness does not escape God. And God is watching.